Hi everybody, I hope you're doing great. Today I'm going to show you a video which is basically the process of how to take clothing that you've made in Marvelous Designer and import it into Adobe Fuse to work with your Fuse figures. Now this workflow is a little bit limited, and to be honest, this was a video that I've kind of put off because I don't think that this is the valid workflow anymore. And in case you don't know, Adobe will be pulling Adobe Fuse from the Creative Cloud downloads, and you won't be able to download it anymore in about 6 months from now in September of 2020. So I suggest that you watch my video where I show a free plugin for Unity to skin clothing meshes to your rigged figures. And I've already made that video, and I know that Unity is not everybody's program, but I really think that that's a better workflow than this, because Fuse's days are numbered, and we don't really know how long after September that Fuse will still be compatible with the online Mixamo Auto Rigger. So just to plan ahead, there is a plan B, and that's actually, I think, a little more flexible. And what I'm actually going to show you today is a costume that I made. In fact, I'll show you that right now. A costume that I made that I think worked pretty well in Adobe Fuse. And this is a freebie. You can actually download this from my itch.io store. I think it's called Bodysuit 2 because I have a tendency to make everything as one outfit. So I went ahead and when I imported it, I created this bodysuit, and you see I have a lot of clothing in here that I create. And I just like my outfits to be easy, and here it is. So when you download it from itch.io, it'll load with this custom thumbnail. And before I go any further, let me go ahead and in Adobe Fuse, you go up to the File menu, and you need to download the Content Creator package. And what's inside is this base figure, unrigged, ready to be imported into Adobe Fuse or into a sculpting program. Okay, now when I imported the base mesh OBJ into Marvelous Designer, she comes in with a lot of built-in options for these kind of bounding meshes and control points, and this is not correct. Marvelous Designer won't do this anymore. Marvelous Designer is expecting a humanoid shape, so it will read the figure, and it will actually fit these bounding and control points. And these aren't crucial. As you can see, I made this outfit before this happened, so I just freehanded it without these bounding things. These are aids to help you, and I shouldn't even show things like this because I'm not going to get that deep into what Marvelous Designer does. So I'll just go ahead and show you a couple of things that I did on this outfit. And the first thing you'll notice is that the colors are really like kind of horrible and very bright. And I didn't work with it this way, to be honest. I probably just work with it as white or gray, or a dark red or a nice calm blue. But before I export, what's going to happen is you're going to get a UV map, and it's going to become your color mask in Adobe Fuse. And each color is going to be replaced by one of the substances that are in Fuse. So you can prepare the outfit to receive Fuse's substance, you know, a lot of fabric materials, leather, metal. You can prepare all that by, you know, creating different fabrics in specific colors. And Fuse reads, let me just come back and talk to you for a minute. Fuse reads how many? 8 colors? It's the 3 primary colors, red, green, and blue. It reads the 3 secondary colors, which is cyan, magenta, and yellow. And you also get white and black. So when you create this color mask, which is the UV islands of all of your fabric parts. Does that make sense? Basically, you're allowed to add 8 substance materials to your outfit once you've imported into Adobe Fuse. So, you know, I mean, I'm telling you not to do this, but I did learn on this system, and I think it was a cool system, and I think, you know, it was pretty user-friendly, as user-friendly as it could be, and I think it just needed a little more support, but I mean, I worked it out. You could work it out too if you knew kind of, if you know, if you wasted a few weeks like experimenting like I did. Okay, so let me go back to Marvelous Designer. Okay, so I'm just going to point out some problems with this outfit that you're not seeing, and later we're going to go and look at another outfit that is not exactly going to work. So first thing you'll notice when you have to work with this base mesh is that Fusette is in TPose, and TPose is great for rigging. TPose is great for Unity's Mechanim, which is the system that transfers a model to generic animations and back and forth. And the reason that TPose works is because it knows where the floor is. It knows where the arms are perpendicular to the floor, and it can scale all of the limbs according to that, as long as you have a humanoid shape. So TPose is great for rigging. TPose is great for animations, but TPose is kind of lousy for making clothing. And I think you probably know why. Like, for one thing, the feet are a little close together, and so I actually have problems right here on these pants where they drift a little too close. Sometimes this pixel gets partly skinned to this leg, and some of this gets skinned to this leg, and there's nothing you can do about it. This is the import outfit for Adobe Fuse. There's something that you can do on your own outfits. You can create your own figures, and you can import clothing based on your own figures, and I'm going to show you that towards the end of the video. But other problems that you're going to see with TPose is that these sleeves are always going to be strange and horrible, and you're never quite sure where the shoulder begins and where the arm begins, and you kind of have to guess. And this bit under the arms is always going to like crumple up inside the body, and it's going to be other problems. And basically, when you design clothing, you probably want a pose, which is the feet a little bit more akimbo, not the way I'm drawing it, it wouldn't be that far, and the arms kind of, again, akimbo, and they call it a pose. So it's not a deal breaker, you know, you'll live. Like, obviously I lived. Some other things that were a little bit of issues with this outfit is that you're working with a thin mesh, and it's kind of like all of your outfits are paper thin because they're really just one-sided meshes. And I tried my best to hide the fact that this collar, for instance, is a single-sided mesh, and under normal use you would never, you'd never see that it's only single-sided. But there's a lot of times when you design clothing, and actually this will be part of the clothing later, so I'm just pointing it out now, where, yeah, you need double-sided mesh, and this is not the greatest workflow for that either. I'll get into that in a little bit. I just wanted to put a pin in that, that there are limits to what you can import into Adobe Fuse. Alright, so let's go look at an outfit, a new outfit, that kind of isn't going to work as well. And what I've done in this case, I'm just going to open an entirely new scene. What I've done in this case is I've taken the Fuse base mesh in wrap 3 and I've created an entirely new figure. So this is going to be my original body shape with a custom costume just for this body. And you can see that her body's a little extreme and a little more curvy than Fusette. But I just want to kind of show you a problem that we're going to have before we actually hit the problem. And again, like, here's my collar, and this is a single-sided mesh. And I can go in here in Marvelous Designer, and I'm pretty sure that I have a setting in here where I can create the back faces, so this becomes a double-sided mesh before I export it. The problem is that I'm creating a lot of extra mesh that won't be seen, that's actually, right against her skin. And so it's just a little bit of a compromise. Am I sort of overbuilding this outfit so that it works in Adobe Fuse, or am I just going to leave it a single-sided mesh and maybe fix it later in another program, or just use a double-sided shader that's going to turn a single-sided mesh into a double-sided material, kind of looking like what you see here. So there's a couple of other things I want to point out. I have this nice zipper texture, and it's just a texture. It works like a seam. It just kind of, repeats along its own edge. And when I export that, that's going to be on a detail map. And if I use like a custom fabric, cloth, like a repeating JPEG or a pattern to create like a cloth texture and a normal map, I would also be exporting that as a detail map. But I would still want to go ahead and change these cloth colors into those bright colors. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that now. I'm going to pick magenta. For this part of the pattern, and I'll just contrast it with another primary or secondary color, which will be, what shall we use? Sure, green. And for some reason it's not giving me true green, so I'm making sure that it is true green because we're going to replace these with our substance. So now I have a horrible looking outfit from the early 80s. And notice that I have the zipper pull. I just want to show you this other thing because it's not my fault and I just want to complain about it for some reason. However, this zipper OBJ was imported into Marvelous Designer. It sits too high. So the zipper sort of rides a little high, and that's something that I'm going to have to fix in a modeling program later. So I'm just kind of getting you used to the idea that once you export from here, there's still work to be done before you can have a finished product in Adobe Fuse. All right, but let's keep going. So in the olden days, this layout, which is my 2D pattern, would become, they would square it off, and this would become my UV map. But since, I don't know, Marvelous Designer 5 or 6, they've created this UV editor where you can actually just lay out exactly where you want everything to end up on the UV map. And so what you're seeing is one square of UV map. And if you actually build costumes in parts, like you have a pants and a top separate, you could lay out the pants in one UV map. You could lay out the top in another UV map and export them separately or merge them later. Let me show you one other thing before I actually do this export. I'll go back in the simulation. And I probably should have done this when the colors were a little nicer. Now, before I export this model, and I'm almost ready to do it, and spoiler alert, there are going to be a couple of issues with this model, and we'll see what they are. You know, your first question is, how dense should this mesh be? This is basically your entire cloth simulation in Marvelous Designer is based around the density of this mesh. And what you can always do is take a look at the base mesh and give an estimate about how far apart the density of these polygons are. You know, that gives you an idea of how dense you want this. Obviously, with more dense polygons, you're going to get a more natural looking cloth simulation. But you're at too high of a density, you're going to get such a high poly mesh that Fuse is just going to choke on it. It might actually import it, but it will just slow everything down, and you won't have a good time. So I've estimated it at around this size. If you want to see what it actually is, it usually ends up being about 15 to 20. I have these particle settings at 12. That's a little more dense than usual. So obviously I'm trying to really follow her density. I think also I have some nice little wrinkles down here. Just so you're aware, the zipper doesn't appear on this pattern, but it does appear on the UV map. And so I've laid out the zipper here, and the metal parts of the zipper are here and here. And I had some problems with these exporting before, but notice that I've colored them. I've actually colored them in the same where I colored these fabric bits. I colored the zipper another map color, and I had issues with this before, but we'll see if it works. So this is going to be a problematic costume anyway, just so you know. All right, let's export this as an OBJ. And I didn't pre-select the model. I'll give it a name. Now I'm turning off the avatar If I had just selected my mesh parts, I wouldn't have to do this. I'm exporting the graphics and the trims. I want it welded together, and I want a single object. Those are optional, but I like everything as one thin mesh. It's easier. You must use thin because Fuse does not respect OBJ thickness. There's no such thing. I'm exporting a unified UV coordinates, which is this window here from the UV editor. Adobe Fuse expects everything to be in centimeters. Unity is meters, but Fuse is centimeters. Don't move the model at all, and we want to... I'm just going to save it as a zip. Okay. Did I put it in the wrong folder? Yes, I did. Okay, whoops. Alright, let's open up this zip and see what we have inside. Alright, so I have the outfit as an OBJ, and you see it's a single-sided mesh. And I have this, which is my color mask. And what I did not show you was that I added a small border all the way around the UV islands to make it a little bit bigger. And now I didn't prepare something for this zipper, and in some of the my other tries, these little zipper parts did not import correctly. But let's see what we get, because this is part of the fail process. Let's go back to Adobe Fuse. So here she is imported into Fuse. I'm going to import clothing. And we're going to go select my pop collar OBJ. What category is it? I'm going to put it in my favorite, bodysuit. It is clothing, not hair. And I need to select the specific base body, which I know is this one. And because, believe me, you will be deleting this mesh like 7 or 8 times and re-importing it until you get it correct. Give yourself a search tag so that you can find it quickly. Alright, I'm going to use that color mask that we made, even though it's not perfect because I should have done some image editing on this, but let's just try it and see. Now, I don't have a normal map, but that would be a good idea for that zipper. I don't have an ambient occlusion map. That's something I would need to bake in another program. The occlusion mask is the base mesh UV with all the body parts cut away that we don't want to poke through or that we want cut from the final model. And I haven't made one, but you can. And then the detail map is basically an image map, which would be any fabric patterns or that zipper pattern, but I haven't prepared it, so let's just go ahead and import and see what happens. And success! The Fuse has detected my green islands, which are going to be the top. It's detected the magenta, which is going to be the I don't know, I'll call them leggings. The white is nothing. That's actually the back of the map. And the yellow is the zipper. And actually, I might just leave... Yeah, I think I'm going to... I don't know what's going to happen to this zipper down here, so I may just assign it... I'll just leave it, call it white, and we'll see what happens, because I didn't try this before. Now, when you're doing this and you hit an error, and you will, Fuse will try to tell you what's wrong with the mesh, and a lot of times it has geometry that is not on that UV map, and Fuse needs everything to be on that UV map because that's how it distorts. Okay, here's my warning. So basically that was a lead into, because I knew that some warning was going to happen. And as far as warnings go, it's just telling me this is higher poly than recommended. So Fuse is going to take a longer time than normal. And basically this is kind of understandable because you notice that most of the clothing is broken up into a top and a bottom. And also Fuse clothing is fairly low poly compared to the base mesh. So I acknowledge that it will take longer, but that's no big deal. Now there are some, like if you have geometry that's not on that base mesh, or you have stray pixels, these are some of the other errors that I've come across. And those you probably need to stop and fix your clothing mesh, because you, yeah, it's going to show up as like holes in your clothing, or unmapped, un-UV mapped areas of your base mesh. Now I'm probably just going to speed past this for the video, so I'm just going to stop talking for a while. Okay, we're back. Let's go find our outfit. Now I imported it under bodysuit, and it's going to be alphabetical. And it should also be clown colors, so where are you? Here you are. Pop collar. And it fits. Okay, so let's go ahead and assign some. Let's go ahead and assign some materials. Well, there's no point in like going too far with this. Now, you see what's happened is my UVs don't entirely line up with the substance materials. And that's okay, because honestly, if I wanted to do something kind of crazy, I certainly could. And yeah, let's just, yeah, why not? We'll give her a zebra outfit for this space outfit. Now, remember when I talked about the collar being only one-sided? So Fuse is a little confused about how to render the back sides of this mesh. As you can see, it's not handling this collar very well at all. It doesn't understand what's in front of, you know, it doesn't understand what the fabric, which is in front and which isn't. So that's one problem. Another problem is that I need to do a little bit of graphic work so that I can bring in that detail map to be the zipper. And as you see, I have like no texture here because it, that's easy to fix though. And the metal actually looks pretty good. I do need to adjust this in a modeling program to shift it down. In fact, it looks like I've lost some of that zipper mesh, so it's probably there. I believe it's there. Yeah, it is there. You see it. It's just not visible. Yeah, it's not visible. So this is not the real problem. The real problem with this mesh is going to be the defining feature is this fancy little pop collar, which I'm very proud of. I find it very fashionable and stylish. But the auto rigger is going to mangle this because it's going to decide it's part of her head and jaw, and it's not going to stay stiff like that. It's going to move with her head. In fact, let's just go and see how that looks. Now I can fix this problem by editing the bones, by editing the clothing, or by making the clothing dynamic. There are a couple of things that I can do. I think what I would do is I might follow up this video with another video using what I think is the better workflow, skin in Unity, and see if we can get a better result in there. Now here we go. So as you can see, it skinned her quite well. Even though I didn't use the occlusion mask, I don't really see a lot of poke through. I'm sure if I went through and I added some really extreme poses, I could force some poke through because this is a fairly skin-tight outfit. And let's take a look at that collar. Okay, so it's not just moving with the jaw, it's really stretching in a very strange and unnatural way. But the rest of it flowed great. So what you're going to find out is you're going to take it all the way to this level, and you're going to find out something is screwy that you don't like. And you'll have to suck it up and change your clothing and send it back through the entire process, which can be a little slow and a little bit tedious, but it does work, okay? Let me come back and see you guys. Okay, I'm gonna wrap this one up and maybe trim it down a little bit. I hope this was useful to you. Once again, Adobe Fuse is going away, and so you need to back it up onto a secure computer, or as maybe you have an old computer that is more compatible with 2015 software. That might be a good idea to archive it. But if you subscribe to my channel, I'm coming up with a lot of other solutions like the other video that I suggest you follow instead, which is using skin in Unity, and I'll put that link up again at the end of this video. Alright guys, if you found this useful, go ahead and subscribe and hit the like button if you think other people will find it useful too. Stay safe, guys. I'll see you next time. Cutscene Artist is out.